Hello and welcome to Tech of the Month in association with Garmin, the show where we bring you the last 4 weeks in tech news and reviews. And this month we have the opportunity for one lucky viewer to win a pair of Rally XC 100 power meter pedals.
So I'm going to kick off today with some headlines, the first one being about the new Scott Addict Gravel. Now the Scott Addict Gravel launched really recently and it's got some pretty big updates that kind of take it more in line with other modern gravel bikes, like the Canyon Grizl, which we'll obviously come on to in a little while because it's hanging up behind us. Notably, it's a bit more, we always say it kind of is a bit closer to mountain biking geometry. So the top tube has been increased by about 10 millimeters, but Scott Ship It was a shorter stem. So the effective reach is the same, but it just gives you that additional stability, but the control is better because the stem is that bit shorter. Of course, another trait, wider tyres. The Scott Addict Gravel now ships with 45 millimeter tyres as standard on the bike. However, the one controversial thing that Scott has done, they have made it a completely integrated bar and stem using the IC Creston SL handlebar, which we'll all know from the road-going Addict, and even the foil now actually uses that as well. Whether gravel riders want something as integrated as that, I'm not so sure. I don't know if I would if I was riding off-road, but it will be really interesting to see, and it does look pretty neat.
To be fair, I think that when you're strapping a handlebar bag on, having the cables like tucked nicely away inside the bar, you don't have to worry about like pinching the brake lines or the gear cables, putting on the handlebar bag. And when it comes to group sets, the electronic, hydraulic group sets, with those you don't actually have to replace the cables at all. Once the cables are set up to the hoods, then any servicing, that's just bleeding, and if electronic, there's no gear cable to take out. So it's pretty fit and forget once you got the bike set up in the first place.
So the Scott Addict Gravel starts at £2,399 with a Shimano GRX group set and tops out at £7,999 with a SRAM ETAP group set with a power meter.
Continental has just brought out a cream version of its GP5000 tyres, special for the Tour de France, building on the popularity from 2020.
So cream rather than tan sidewall. What's the difference here?
Well, here, essentially nothing. There's no naked carcass. It's essentially just been painted, dyed, the sidewalls of the tyres, and so it's not offering any performance benefit. It just looks that much nicer.
So it's a GP5000 in all but its look, basically.
In all but its look, and also its weight. The cream sidewalls add 25 grams to the weight of each tyre, and so so you're paying
to have a very slightly heavier bike. But they were madly popular, that's why they brought it back. So if the people want it, right, they're going to make it again. But yeah, they brought them back out, and they're now a permanent edition because they were initially just a one-time limited edition thing, and they're also in 25 and 28.
Although interestingly, not the 32 or the 23, so maybe testing the waters a little bit still. One thing to note is that it's only the clincher version that is getting the treatment. The tubeless version, it will still only be available, not in this colour.
So how much do they cost, just so we know?
So they're $59.99, and which is pretty much the same price as a standard set of GP5000s.
So on to some of the products we've been testing in the last month. My favourite test this month was a test of the Zipp 353 NSW wheels, and I actually had the Zipp 303S to compare directly. Now in both cases, Zipp has gone down the line of what it calls total system efficiency, and they're focusing not just on aerodynamics, low rolling resistance and weight, but also on comfort, and arguing that that actually makes you faster. So they've gone hookless rims, really wide internal rim width, and they're all about tubeless, which I've had my opinions on. We can go a month back to last month, second month if you want those. But if you're pro tubeless, then these are the kind of wheels you might be looking at. And it was really interesting to compare the two. I was actually expecting them not to be all that different. One set is £3,200 and one set is at that 1K mark. But I didn't really anticipate there was going to be a huge difference. Actually, rolling out of my estate is quite an unmade road, and immediately the 353 NSW really did feel a lot smoother. And then when I just comparing the internal rim width on the 353 NSW is 25mm versus 23 on the 303S. And that does actually pump the tyre out wider. So with digital verniers, you could see there was a difference. It was less than a millimetre, but it was still there. So that might contribute. I did find actually that the 353 NSW was 0.2 miles an hour faster on a half an hour loop when wattage was basically the same. In the end, I gave the 353 NSW a 4 out of 5. They are really, really exceptional wheels, but they're also £3,200 and that price lets them down. But if you do have the money to go really deep, then the 303 NSW is a well-rated wheel.
So we've also had on test for Pirelli P Zero race tyres, which Pirelli claim to be the fastest clinchers that they've ever produced. They're even faster than the tubular tyres that Pirelli produces, and so yeah, these are properly rapid set of tyres.
Now, I've ridden Pirellis in the past, and I found them to be a kind of quite a soft compound tyre. And I always imagine that because they're a Formula One tyre making business, I'm always like, it's like Formula One tyres but for bikes, because they're super grippy and quite tacky when you're riding along. Did you find that?
Yeah, that's exactly what we found. Like in the wet, when it came to the cornering, the grip we found to be impeccable. Didn't test them to the limit, shall we say? So yeah, still holding back a little bit, but there was no hint that they were going to sort of give out and wash out at any point.
And getting them on rims, I've always found them to actually be relatively easy. They're certainly not fun breakers.
No, definitely. And yeah, clincher tyres tend to be a little bit easier to get on the rim anyway, but these ones particularly easy to get on, even on a set of tubeless ready rims. And
I mean, how supple are they compared to other options on the market?
So I think this is one of the negative sides to the tyre. The casing is 127 TPI and it's from nylon. It's just not quite as supple as you get with a cotton casing, like with Victoria Corsas. Yeah, when it came to the speed on smooth roads, it was perfect, but yeah, on rougher stuff, a cotton casing would be a bit nicer. The price is £54.99, which puts them at £5 under the Continental GP5000s. But then again, as we said, those tyres, you can often find them on a pretty good discount, and so maybe they're not that much better value than the Continental GP5000s. But yeah, on paper, they are that little bit cheaper.
So onto a product that we've not yet reviewed, but are currently testing. I'm really excited this month because I have Favero Assioma's Duo-Shi pedals. These were rumoured for quite a long time. I mean, Favero themselves leaked it on Instagram as well. It's been around, people knew it was coming, but it's actually here now. It's pretty interesting. The pedals, well, they don't ship as pedals. That's the first point.
This is just a Shimano pedal body.
Yes. So what you get in the box, just 2 of these. So you get 2 Assioma power cartridges. What you already have to own is a Shimano pedal. And you use a 17mm spanner just to remove this. And I've got a pair ready to show you. It really is easy. I was quite amazed. And then you just thread this in. It's really, really simple. Just a caveat on that is that this is aluminium and on here it's steel. So it is that bit softer. I don't know, I didn't love using a spanner on something that felt quite this soft, and it's something I would question a little bit, longevity. That would be one question. And the other major caveat, I'm going to get these out of the way before I talk about the great things, because there's a lot of those. The other caveat is that it does increase your Q factor by 11mm. So on these, it's 65 as opposed to 54 on a standard pedal. I think Garmin is 53. So they have increased it quite a lot just because that was the only way they could get the pod onto Shimano's spindle. For me, it's actually great. Being female, I've got a wider pelvis than the majority of male riders. And every bike that I've ever had, they've said, oh, you should really have a wider Q factor. It's not going to be the case for probably the majority of the target audience. So I think that's going to raise questions for people. Certainly in my own testing, it was totally fine. So I've just had these for about 3 days. I've put about 225k on them and they've been great. So I've really enjoyed that. And I've used the Favero pedals for a while. As have you, Stefan. I've found them really reliable and really good. Is that your experience?
Yeah, exactly. And also the way that they charge with a magnetic clip, just, it's so easy to just put a charger pack in the bottle cage, put the wire on. Yeah, it's really, really simple. You're not having to faff around with batteries or ports with like little bungs. One like criticism that yeah, I would have with the previous pedals was the weighting of the pedal. Like the way that it just tips when you're not clipped in, you're always having to flip it over with the front of your foot.
Favero are actually really popular and they are particularly good value. So these are €489, which comes down to about £417. You do obviously have to buy pedals on top, unless you already have them, which I assume if you're a Shimano user and you're desperate to keep using Shimano, but you want power meter pedal, you've probably got pedals. So that's not really going to be an issue.
So these will fit a 105 body, any Shimano pedal body. Because obviously you've got Ultegra, but there are options much cheaper than those. It's
true, yeah. There is a list, and you'll see it on our review on the website. It's a long list of all the different pedal options that they are compatible with. So it's not all Shimano pedals, but the vast majority.
I thought it was really interesting that you said about the longevity of the pedals, because that is really the sort of the base point for all power meter pedals is always the longevity, because I think we always find that in the first sort of months of riding them, they're great, they perform really well, when really the test is what are they like in 6 months' time.
I think though that often the problems arise because you've got something quite sophisticated, quite expensive, really low to the ground, and you get problems when you get water ingress, grit and debris. In the case of the Favero, because you use that rechargeable battery, you don't really get that. You don't get much. I have not had problems with them. I found them really reliable. And this, the pod, is the same. So although, yes, I haven't tested these for a year, which is, you know, we generally for power meter pedal reviews, we try and wait to do like at least 6 months worth of riding before doing the long-term review. And we'll have to wait and see how these get on for that long-term review. But these are, it is the same system as the ones I've tested in the past. Stefan's used them, actually you've used them as well, and they have just been really reliable. So I have every hope, but I won't say, yes, they're amazing until we've tested them long-term.
So I've brought along a real piece of techie gizmo for this month, which is this, the Quark TyreWhiz. Now this isn't new, it has been around for a little while, but we've just got our hands on it. And this replaces the valve on your wheel and will give you a real-time update on what your pressure is inside your tyre. So just to run through the tech specs of this, it communicates on Bluetooth or ANT+, which means you can pair it to both your phone or your cycling computer if you want to have a little data screen, which is quite cool. It has a battery, which is a little coin cell battery, which are pretty common. And it has a claimed 300 hours of battery life, which is of riding battery life. It does go to sleep if it doesn't move. So, you know, that's a lot of battery time. And finally, it weighs, each of them weigh 11 grams, which is about 6 grams more than a normal valve. So Michelle tells me, who has been diligently weighing tubeless valves lately. And it costs £229 for both of them, which is a huge sum of money for something that gives you real-time updates on your pressure readings. So that puts it firmly in the category of people that have a lot of money to spend on their bikes and are looking for real marginal gains, which might not be you, but it is a huge amount of the cycling industry. So, you know, there is the Quark TyreWhiz in a nutshell.
If I'm out on the trails on a gravel bike, if I feel that I'm getting a bit too much of a harsh ride, or like something's really dried up or something that's really rocky, I just get off the bike, I squish the tyre, and I think, oh yeah, I could let out a bit of pressure, and I let out a bit of pressure. And I'm sure that there are cross racers out there screaming at the screen saying, oh, that's terrible because you won't be accurate and maybe you'll be then under pressure. But I've got a pump in my pocket and I'll just take out the pump and put in a bit more pressure. That's my stance on it. So I guess if you're like mega after performance and you really want to know, if you're like doing like really big gravel races, then I see it. For most people, I don't. But then most people are not going to shell out the amount of money that these cost. So maybe they're not the audience.
I would struggle to use this on the road, I think, but I imagine there are some pretty important implications for off-road riding. And Stefan, you ride a lot off-road, so would you see a use for this?
Well, yeah, certainly like tyre pressures are super important when it comes to off-road riding. Like it can be the difference between being pinged about on the rocks and having a really harsh, juddery ride, and yeah, actually having the amount of grip that you'd want and that the tyres have the promise to give. For me, like I set the tyre pressures with a digital gauge before setting off riding, and that's all I need for the accurate reading. But yeah, is that worth £220?
Well, if you're doing I'm starting to come around a tiny bit. If you're doing the kind of massive, how long is like Dirty Kansas, something like that,
200 miles or so.
200-mile long gravel thing, and you want to win it, and you have had a couple of punctures and you have lost a bit of air, but you didn't know about it. It could be useful, because you'd be really bummed if you ended up like dinging a rim and you're now out of the race. So for those people, but it's just that those are a really small number of people. So a brief interlude before we talk about our bike of the month, and we have competition of the month. So for August, you have the chance to win a set of Garmin Rally XC100 pedals. It's a single-sided option from Garmin, in this case with the XC pedal body. But the really neat thing about Garmin's option is that you can change the spindle between either Shimano or Look or this SVD option. So you can track your power across all different disciplines if you so wanted. Accurate to plus or minus 1%. They take replaceable batteries, which are really, really easy to replace.
If you want to be in for a chance to win these pedals, then head down to the video description below, click on the link and fill in the form. Now the competition will close 3 weeks from the release of this video, so be sure to enter if you want to win this pair of pedals.
So this month for Bike of the Month, we've got the Canyon Grizl gravel bike, the latest addition to Canyon's gravel range. It's not replacing the Grail, which was Canyon's first gravel bike. This is an addition.
It looks burlier. This is a clear distinction that they want to make between the Grail and this. And this is something I've been thinking a while about with gravel bikes and brands, is that how long until we start seeing distinctions rather than gravel just being a standalone discipline? How long until we get distinctions within gravel? Canyon appear to be there now.
Yeah, precisely. The Grail gravel bike has clearance for tyres up to 42 millimeters, which is really quite narrow by the standards of today. And the Grizl comes with 45 millimeter wide tyres, and it says it has clearance for 50 millimeters.
Interestingly, they haven't gone for the platform handlebar. It's just a standard handlebar. Reasons for that?
There's a couple of reasons for stepping away from the hoverbar for the Grizl. First is for greater compatibility with aero handlebars, clip-on aero bars. So for long distance races like the Dirty Kansas, Unbound gravel, it's just easier. You can get set up with the stock handlebars there. But also with the separate handlebar and stem, it means that it's a little bit easier to swap between different handlebars, because handlebar preference for gravel is something that's quite personal. The amount of flair that you want to have, and just the exact width that you want as well, whether you want to have the maximum stability for descending, or whether you want something a bit narrower at the top if you're planning on riding long distance on the gravel bike. It's got a plethora of mounts. It's got one for the bolt-on top tube bag. It's got one underneath the underside of the down tube, and then on the front you got the triple bottle bosses for an anything cage, and it can take up to 3 kilos on each side.
I can see that we've got the same sort of leaf sprung seat post here that I've previously ridden on the Grail. Canyon are carrying that over there. I actually think that's a really good seat post. It's probably one of the most comfortable ones I've ridden. So this is a GRX build. How big's the line? Is it a classic Canyon, really expansive, or is it just a few models? Yeah,
so interestingly, group sets on offer with the Grizl are quite limited at the moment, and so you've got all the GRX group sets you'd expect. There's a 2x version, there's DR2, there's a mechanical 1x version as well. They also have a Campagnolo, the E-Carve, a 1x13 group set. Conspicuously, they don't have any SRAM group sets. It's quite a surprise coming from Canyon. They have quite a close relationship with SRAM. There's something that might be sort of hinting towards why this might be with the Grizl, and it's that the head tube is actually rated to be able to take the stresses from a suspension fork, and SRAM own RockShox, And so yeah, the thinking is maybe perhaps like in the near future, they might be coming out with a suspension fork for the Grizl. At the moment, there's no suspension option. It's ready for a suspension fork, but they're not selling one with a suspension fork. And so once everything's in place, I think that we can expect SRAM builds to start coming out with a Grizl and a suspension fork to be in place. But that's very much reading into the spec that the Grizl comes with.
Geometry-wise, presuming this is on the more aggressive scale of gravel bikes, you know, what are we talking? Sort of head angle, wheelbase, those type of key metrics?
A bit like the Scott, it's got a bit of a longer top tube, a shorter stem. The stem's only 80 millimeters, so not super short, but still, yeah, shorter than you'd expect. The head angle is, nothing radical. Like on some gravel bikes, we're seeing it being raked out to 70 degrees, and this is in a size medium. It's 72.25, and so it's kind of middle of the road when it comes to head angle of the fork. And so the price for this build is just under £3,000. It's $2,949 in US dollars. It's $3,200 for the spec and for the carbon frame for the GRX 1x11 group set. I think it's pretty reasonable. You've got nice DT Swiss wheels too. The Schwalbe tyres, we've reviewed them recently. The Schwalbe G1 Bites, and they have a really good balance. Between grip, rolling resistance, and just a good all-rounder. And so it's about £3,000, just over $3,000, and the value I think is pretty good.
So the Grizl is actually part of a larger group test. What's it going to be up against?
So it's up against the BMC ERS 1 with a 1x11 SRAM Apex group set. It's also against the Tifosi Cavazzo, and that's quite interesting. It's got Campagnolo's E-Car, a 1x13 group set, and still coming in at around about that £3,000 mark. And the final bike that it's up against is the Rondo Root CF2, and that's coming with the GRX 2x10 group set.
So that was Tech of the Month for August. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please do hit the like button, hit subscribe if you want to see more of our videos. And if you've got comments or questions or anything you want to contribute, then just pop it into the comments section below.